I have said the word torpedo more times in the last 3 days than I probably have said in my entire life combined. And if you're following baseball, it might be the same for you. Hi, everybody. This is Craig from MetropoliFins. We're going to talk all about the bats that are taking over baseball and baseball social media as we go into this 2025 season. But before we do that, let's do a rewind. Back in the 1920s, not the 2020s, in the 1920s, Babe Ruth revolutionized baseball by using a 54-ounce bat, setting records that still stand today. Fast forward 100 years later to 2025, and this new torpedo bat design is making waves. So is this the next evolution in baseball? Is this cheating? Is it unfair? Is it a short-lived experiment? Well, we're going to dive in and take a little bit of a closer look. Innovation has always been part of baseball. Remember, there was times when players used different types of mitts or even no mitts at all, and all of these things are part of how we have the game that we have had. And even within those things, we now have better gloves than anything that was used 100 years ago, better cleats, new pitch types, improved protective gear, different types of face masks. And I get it, anything that seems to potentially interrupt the integrity of the offensive records in baseball is always going to be something that is going to have a polarizing effect. But one of the things that I find interesting is it's not necessarily the traditional fans that don't like this. I've seen more outrage actually from the betting fans as opposed to anything else. But I really don't think this is that big of a deal. But we're going to dive in. The bat design has evolved over time just within baseball, and I just believe that torpedo bats are part of that ongoing process and the logical conclusion of taking analytics from just merely a classroom and dealing with the analytics of players to the analytics of gear. In fact, as an old-time baseball fan, I would much prefer we stop messing with players' swings and different things like that gets them very uncomfortable and sometimes has negative results for the players, and instead let's work on fixing the gear. I'm much more on pace with that. So let's just do a little bit of a comparison here to Babe Ruth. And he used a variety of bats, but at one time he used a 40-inch, 54-ounce ash bat. Today's bats typically are between 31 to 34 ounces, so significantly lighter. If unusual bat designs were rejected back in Babe Ruth's day, then we might not even know the name Babe Ruth. We don't know what percentage of his home runs were due to the fact that he could swing a heavier bat at the same speed that players were swinging lighter bats. His power hitting legacy certainly would not be the same, and it might have been drastically different. And so just like there are modern day players who could not, and even in his time there were players who could not swing a 54-ounce Babe Ruth bat effectively, there's going to be some players that will perform well with these torpedo bats, and there's going to be other players that have zero need. So with all this outrage, and we're going to get into the outrage a little bit, but you have to remember, it's not Aaron Judge using this bat. And so for him, he's not seeing that it's a competitive advantage for him. And this is where we're going to really dig into the weeds here in a little bit. First of all, in case you're just a little unfamiliar, what is a torpedo bat? Well, the barrel has more mass, which leads to a larger sweet spot. Anthony Volpe says the barrel of the bat is much farther down, which gives you a larger sweet spot. Jazz Chisholm Jr. says, I use one, it feels good in the hand, and it's still wood, so I'm with it. Aaron Leanhardt was the designer behind this. He's a former physics professor at the University of Michigan. He's an MIT graduate. He joined the Yankees research and development team in 2023 and now is consulting with players and bat manufacturers. So he is kind of the forefront of this whole push for bettering the bat gear. And some of the quotes that he has regarding these bats is, at the end of the day, it's about the batter, not the bat. In other words, it's about finding the right match between batter and bat. It's not just about getting a torpedo bat into the hand of every single batter. He said, credit to the players, they were willing to be patient zero. And then he also goes on to say, this isn't about easier contact, it just rewards hitters for being great. And so his design philosophy mirrors the gear evolution that's going on in other sports, such as driver technology in golf and the carbon plate shoes that track stars are using as well. So let's get to the legality of it. MLB rule states that the bat shall be a smooth, round stick, not more than 2.61 inches in diameter at the thickest part and not more than 42 inches in length. The bat shall be one piece of solid wood. And MLB has reviewed these bats and has already stated that they are legal. Now, I've seen some speculation and rumors that some of these bats might be hollowed out in court. Obviously, if there's something like that going on, I don't approve of that. But the basic manufacturing of the bats, as we are being told, is exactly that this is a solid piece of wood, one single piece of wood. So some of the manufacturers that are involved in this include Louisville Slugger, Chandler Bats, Victus Sports, owned by Marucci, Axis Sports. These bats are retailing right in the same price of $200, $300, which is standard for pro-level wooden bats. And here's the other thing that I really want to emphasize with this is that no team or player has exclusive access to this. The only way that this even makes sense to me as a controversy would simply be as if the Yankees had access to this technology and it was proprietary and no other teams were allowed to do it. Look, if you want this bat, go ahead and order it. whether you're a Major League Baseball player or just a fan in the stands, go pony up your money, go order one of the bats, and you'll have it in the mail in the next week or two. So at most, it's just a little bit of an advantage for the first couple weeks of the season for the players who've done the work. And honestly, it's not like it just started this season. Some players have been using these bats recently. But there are some reactions from around the league, sports and sports commentators, both either critical or kind of skeptical of it or whatever. Trevor McGill of the Brewers, now you got to take into mind that he was part of this huge outburst that the Yankees had against the Brewers. But he said, "I've never seen anything like it. It's terrible." Xander Bogaerts, when asked about it, said, "I thought they edited the picture. I'd never seen anything like it." And of course, David Portnoy of Barstool Sports said the Yankees hired an MIT physicist. It doesn't mean that you suddenly got better. And that's certainly the case, but the MIT physicist would say the exact same things. We're not trying to make players better. We're not going to allow them to hit a ball that they wouldn't normally hit. We're just trying to make sure that when they actually hit the ball, that it will get the maximum distance that they are for it. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza has come out and said he thinks it's a great innovation. And Giants broadcaster Mike Krakow, hopefully I said that right, he compared it to the introduction of maple bats and said that the adoption will likely spread. I tend to think that it's going to be just kind of a mishmash. I think some players are going to use it and like it, and other players are not going to use it and not like it. And I don't see this being a trend where every single player is using a torpedo bat. I also don't see it a trend where, unless there's a rule change, where it's going to necessarily go away. I think there's going to be times and maybe even portions in the season where players get in a slump. They might try a different bat. But again, no different than anything else that what it is. So anyway, if you're finding this kind of baseball analysis and talk fun and helpful, hit that like and subscribe button as we're on our journey to 200 subscribers. What other piece of gear, comment below, do you think is due for a modern redesign? And what else do you have to say about this torpedo bat controversy? I'd love to know your take on everything. A couple more things here. If we talk about analytics, it is valid to be cautious about changes in the game that are purely data driven. And I tend to be one of the more outspoken people that thinks that sometimes the analytics have actually done more harm to the game than good. And obviously when MLB has to make rules to overcome the analytics and what the analytics are saying, such as having to put a no shift rule in place, I think that does harm to the game, because I think the shift has always been a great part of the game, but then MLB felt it was too much of a part of the game, so now we've lost something in the game that has always been an option for teams, and now it's no longer an option. And so sometimes the progress of analytics ends up actually stunting what I think the direction that the sport could actually go. But these analytics here are just aligning with traditional performance goals. It's just improving control, improving contact, making sure that better contact can be had by hitters. And again, this is not exclusive technology to any particular group of players or teams. And again, as long as it follows the rules, I think this is just part of the natural evolution of the equipment and progression of equipment that players are using in the sport of baseball. Now, here's my one caution on this, and I have not done the research. I'll share a little bit of what I've found so far. But if there is a significant injury risk to pitchers because the velocity off these bats is determined to be significantly faster, and by significantly, I just mean like 5% faster, where an injury that could be very painful could become lethal or different things like that, then I would certainly say, okay, then maybe that's something that a conversation that should be had sooner rather than later. But some experts are suggesting contact may even result in lower exit velocity off the torpedo bats. Others have said that it might have been a gain of 3 miles per hour in swing speed, which could offset that. So I do think that it is important that for the safety of the players, we continue to monitor that and see what the average exit velocity is starting to look like on barrels and sweet spot hits off of these bats. As of right now, I have not seen any evidence. If you have seen evidence that there is a higher exit velocity, let me know down in the comments below. I would love to research it more. But I do think we need to monitor that and go from there. So what's going to happen from here? I honestly don't think this is anything we need to go crazy over. I do think it makes for great clicks. I do think people with the new baseball season are just chomping for controversy. And now that Yerkes and Profar has been suspended, maybe people get talking about PEDs again and things that are actually illegal that players are still trying to do in the majors. But nonetheless, I guess we had to have an early season controversy. Will we be talking about this like this crazy thing come September? I highly doubt it. I really don't. Torpedo bats are either going to be a short-lived experiment, or they're going to be something that will completely take over the league and be the new norm, or maybe somewhere in between is where I kind of settle, where again, a handful of players will probably use these or use them as slump busters, and other players are going to use them for a while and try different styles and different actual configurations of the barrel of the bat that will work for whatever their particular hitting style is. But honestly, if performance doesn't improve, if there's not a comfort or there's not an actual output at the plates that shows it, or even worse than that, if players who have not used these switch to them and their batting average or their power or their contact goes down due to the unfamiliarity of it, then you'll see some players that will try it, test it out, and immediately go back to what they've been using for years and years and years. Once upon a time, Babe Ruth's bat would be seen as extreme, and honestly, even in today's baseball world, it would. And I don't know if his fits the legal specifications of a baseball bat to be used in baseball nowadays, but the point is the direction and the evolution of baseball gear is always changing, and there's zero reason to be afraid of trying new things within the rules that could potentially help enhance. Maybe we can have some sort of crazy home run era again, like we did back in the 90s, but without the steroids? Wouldn't it be cool if we could see home run derby essentially in a whole bunch more of baseball games, like what we used to see, but know that it's actually all legit and legal within it? And for that very reason, unless there's some sort of major safety issue here or some sort of cheating that is involved that has not been disclosed at this point in time, MLB is going to be all for this, because more scoring is all about what MLB wants. They want high scoring games. Most fans want to see the home runs. They want to see the big hits. Innovation does not replace skill, but it can reward those who are early adapters by giving them a little bit of a leg up. And we will see if this is a continued trend. So let me know down in the comments below. Will we be talking about torpedo bats in 6 months, or is this just a simple blip on the radar?